probably ready to begin. Good afternoon or good morning to everyone attending this afternoon's webinar. My name is Matt Ryland. I'm the Executive Director at BritCham Vietnam, and I'm very happy to be moderating Future Cities of Vietnam this afternoon. It's great to see an audience from 9 different countries this afternoon, which really shows the interest and the potential people see for how Vietnam can develop and embrace smart cities into the future. As populations rise and people's demands increase, technology gives us the opportunity to make life easier, safer, and limit the negative effects of population growth. So today we will cover how cities can become smarter and the relationship of technology and people's everyday activity and the impact that it can have, not only on the people side and everyday life, but on how utilities and infrastructure can operate and will operate. We're very lucky today. We have 3 speakers who are actually on 3 different continents. So we have a truly international selection of speakers. So we have Bryce Richard, who is the Strategy and Insights Regional Lead for Australasia at Arab. We have Sajid Khan, who is the Senior Director for Intel Smart Cities and Transportation. And we have Yao Wai Yon, who is the Intel Segment Marketing Manager for Cities and Transportation. There will be the opportunity for the panel to answer questions at the end of the session. If you do have any questions during their presentations, please use the Q&A function and we will try and get through as many as we can. On that note, I would like to hand over to Bryce to start his presentation. Bryce, over to you.
Thank you very much, Matt. And first of all, it's really a privilege to be with everybody today and to be hearing from everybody as well. So thank you for having me. So I will make a quick presentation following key results that we've collected through a project that we've undertaken with DIT in Vietnam, where we have reviewed the current state and opportunities related to smart cities in Vietnam. So next slide, please. I do not see the next slide. Is it still at the keynote speech? Ah, there you go. So the first slide is a beautiful cover that we've designed for the occasion. Next slide. Oh. Okay, so first of all, I'll just give you a bit of a quick introduction. You can go to the next slide about what the report is covering and what you can find in that report, and we'll share the link to that report at the end of the call, of course. But essentially, the Smart City Handbook Vietnam is a pretty comprehensive report on all the progress and opportunities of smart cities across the country. And it answers a couple of very important questions that can actually benefit a whole range of potential readers. Of course, the government officials at the national level and at the local level who are quite interested in understanding how urban technologies can help, with some of the urban opportunities and challenges that Vietnam cities are facing or seeking to capture. But as well, it's an interesting report for any company who is providing services, technologies, expertise related to any element of smart city in Vietnam, and are quite interested in capturing some of the opportunities that exist in the country. So it's not purely a policy, a set of very finding, but it's also a roadmap for anybody who is interested in potentially being part of the smart city opportunity in Vietnam. And some of the key questions that we answer is, One, what smart city projects, current and future, exist in Vietnam. You'll see that Vietnam is a very vibrant country when it comes to smart city and urban technologies at large. Second one is, which areas of the city do these projects focus on? And it's true that there are some variations in terms of what these projects focus on, and it's quite interesting to see where these opportunities lie. The third one is, how can Vietnam accelerate the development of smart cities? And how can the example of the UK particularly help? Because UK has a lot of very interesting experience and expertise in smart cities that this report leverages to make a couple of recommendations. And then finally, for the companies who are providing services and technologies and all kinds of related expertise, of course, a summary of what collaborations and partnership opportunities do smart city represents for not only UK companies, but as well other global companies who are seeking to enter the Vietnamese market. Next slide. So what's important to know is actually when people think about smart city, they're thinking about a whole range of different things, and that they usually think about the area of their own expertise. So some people are talking about thinking about smart buildings, some people are thinking about smart transportation, some people are thinking about e-government. But in at least our assessment, we've really covered a much broader range of potential applications of technology to smart city, because smart city is actually a very, very broad umbrella term that not only encompasses some of the elements that we've talked about, but are also tackling some areas such as like environment and climate change challenges, as well as how to make the economy more competitive, how to foster innovation, but as well how to improve the quality of life of people, make people not only more productive, but happier, but healthier, but more educated. And technology is also playing a key role. So while some definitions of smart city are quite narrow and focused on, you could say, transport operations, for example, or smart buildings, actually, when you look at the smart city opportunity, it's quite broad. And as part of our assessment of what's happening in Vietnam, we see that actually you have smart city projects spanning across all of these elements and having a critical impact on the way Vietnamese cities are developing themselves nowadays. Next slide. So in this report, notably, we've also looked at 17 very specific smart city case studies from 5 key cities across Vietnam. So Ho Chi Minh City, Hanoi, Da Nang, Binh Dong, and San Tho. My apologies for my terrible Vietnamese accent. And what we really wanted to make sure is we don't only give like a broad sense of what's going on in Vietnam, but we also have some more detailed you could say deep dives and descriptions of some of very, very exciting projects that are going on that could potentially provide inspiration for some of you who are interested in thinking, okay, could we do it in another city? Or, well, if I'm providing a technology and expertise, well, this is what's going on in Vietnam. Maybe I could potentially project that expertise in other cities as well. Okay. Next slide. And just to say that we've been looking at a couple of key cities who are basically global smart city leaders as well to provide some of the recommendations that we talked about. Next slide. And so here I'll show you a bit of some of the key findings. And of course, they're high-level summaries, and we invite you to have a look at the report for further details. But that should give you a bit of a taste. Next slide. So, as you know, so Vietnam cities are fast developing, and the rate of urbanization of Vietnam is very, very high, right? And the urban population in Vietnam has really like almost more than doubled in the last 20 years. And so that very rapid growth, as you know, has come with a couple of interesting challenges and priorities. And here is a couple of summarized. But like, first of all, like environment and climate is a big one. And Vietnam, I think, is being ranked one of the 6 most affected countries by climate change according to the Global Climate Risk Index, which shows that the climate challenge is really one that is going to keep a lot of our urban leaders awake at night in the next couple of years. Of course, resource management, Vietnam has done amazing inroads in terms of providing universal access to power supply and urban water, but there's still some opportunities to further improve the quality of service and even embrace more advanced, smart water management and smart power management technologies. Mobility, as you know, is a challenge across Southeast Asia, and Vietnam is no exception, but the boom in private vehicles that really led to congestion issues. Government has really been embarked on a wide e-government campaign and has been very successful in Vietnam, and there's still a lot to be done there. Digital infrastructure, Vietnam is right now deploying pretty extensive 5G infrastructure across the nation, and is one of the most advanced in Southeast Asia in that regard. So it's quite interesting. And the digital economy in Vietnam is also fast moving, and is definitely an area that Vietnam is looking to develop in order to keep on growing its economy going forward. Next slide. So all of these challenges and priorities, you could say, create a very interesting context for urban technologies to come and play a role, either to address some of these challenges or to catalyze or encourage or boost some of these new opportunities. So you'll see in the next couple of slides, but Vietnam, we've seen, has implemented more than 100 smart city projects over the past 5 years. That's massive. Has been allocating $120 billion of public investment in major infrastructure and smart city project. Wide-scale e-government strategies, as I mentioned, with like close to 3,000 public services now available. Leading 5G in Southeast Asia, as I mentioned, and the digital economy in Vietnam has been growing 16% year-on-year in 2020, which is one of the highest in Southeast Asia. All of those things could be potentially turbocharged by technologies in some way, shape, or form. Next slide. Now, Vietnam has recognized that opportunity for technology to play a role in cities, and it has recognized that opportunity. It wasn't yesterday that it recognized it. Actually, as early as 2000, the government already introduced its own ICT program, and over the following 20 years has really taken key decisions and make critical efforts to really see how digital technology could really transform the country and the urban environment at large. And the most recent one was Decision 950 QD-TTG, which approved the development of smarter, sustainable cities. And that is right now essentially providing a national blueprint for national, you could say, digital strategies to try and coordinate a lot of the great work that has been happening across like a lot of smart cities across the nation. Next slide. And what's quite striking is that when you're thinking about smart city, a lot of people are involved in it, and it's not only the national government, right? And of course, the national government has played a critical role and is playing a critical role right now in providing the roadmaps that we talked about for, national smart city implementation, as well as trying to think about the right standards and regulations around it. And a lot of these efforts are indeed spearheaded by the Ministry of Information and Communications in Vietnam, as well as the Ministry of Construction, as well as a lot of other ministries that have their play in it. But funnily enough, the local government has been playing a huge role in doing this. You have a lot of opportunities that are actually spearheaded by people's committee like Da Nang and Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh, and they've really been promoting and deploying a lot of very smart city projects very interesting smart city projects on the ground. And actually, a lot of these initiatives started at a local level, and now the national level is actually playing a very interesting role, coordinating and ensuring that there is some level of harmonization across that. But you've had as well like some very forward-looking and exciting groups such as BRG Group, FPT Group, Vietel, who have been, you could say, private sector tip of the arrow to finance, to provide the technology, to provide the expertise. And you've had a really interesting burgeoning group of academia and association and think tank and research center that really have been trying to push the thinking around smart city to try and bring best practices from globally, to try and to connect it to sound urban planning. And all of those are actually playing a role in ensuring that smart cities are being deployed in Vietnam according to best practices. Next slide. My apologies. So as I mentioned to you, in our assessment, we have inventoried more than 100 smart city projects. And a lot of them are, of course, I think 75% are around Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh, and Da Nang. But that means also that 25% are outside of these cities as well, which really shows that smart city started maybe in the big cities, but now are permeating other cities across Vietnam that are quite interesting to take into consideration. It might like represent the next wave of projects. And a lot of these projects are cut across all the topics that we talked about. They cut across environment, resource management, livability, mobility, economic vibrancy, government and public services, digital infrastructure. So it's quite diverse, and there's a lot of opportunities to improve things through technologies in Vietnam, and I think government and private sector both recognize that. There is a bit of a focus on a couple areas. Mobility and smart transportation is very much an area that a lot of governments in Vietnam are investing in, because of course it is a pressing issue that needs to be tackled, as well as the deployment of digital infrastructure, notably like operating centers, common data environments. That is also a pretty big focus, and as well the digitization of government and public services. So these areas are very much the core of what a lot of smart city opportunities focus on. But as you can tell, they don't necessarily limit themselves to that. There is a whole range of other opportunities around that. Next slide. And as I mentioned to you, we looked at 17 core projects across 5 cities in Vietnam. And here I can give you maybe a couple of examples. Next slide. So the 4 core projects, sorry, just give me a second. Yeah, the 4 core projects is in Ho Chi Minh, and really highlights 4 areas where Ho Chi Minh is set to invest a lot in the future, notably shared open data ecosystem, smart operating center. They also have a center for socioeconomic forecast and a center for information safety. So it's a bit of a broader program, and as I mentioned to you, it's quite focused on putting in place, you could say, a lot of the digital backbone that would allow Ho Chi Minh to operate more efficiently in the city. Next slide. So the Hanoi, North Hanoi Smart City is a smart city project in Hanoi that is the first major smart city project in the city. It covers almost 300 hectares in the Dong An district, and it really incorporates technologies such as 5G and facial recognitions and integrated environmental monitoring to really create probably one of the smartest and major landmark in the development in the gateway to Hanoi. And so it's quite a very, very exciting project, and I think BRG Group is playing a huge role in here. And it's really something that could represent kind of the next gen of what a smart city project in Vietnam could look like. Next slide, sorry. So as I mentioned to you, smart transportation systems are all the rage in Vietnam and actually across Southeast Asia. And here's an example of one, which is Hanoi's intelligent transport system. And you guys might know that Hanoi is home to 4.8 million vehicles, so that's a lot. And so this project is really focusing on developing a control center and an intelligent transportation system that allows essentially transportation authorities to monitor traffic, to predict when some potential congestion is going to happen, to detect accidents in real time. There is also an emergency control system in terms of something happening in the road that they can react pretty quickly. And it's a collaboration between Bosch, FPT, and the People's Committee, the Hanoi's People Committee, that really shows that kind of very strong integration between private sector and local government when it comes to the deployment on the ground. And next slide. Great. And then finally, the Danang electronic healthcare system is a great project that we really think it's super exciting. So it's mostly led by FPT that has been providing IT infrastructure to 16 hospitals in Danang, and is right now building a database and software on electronic health record. And so it's been so successful actually that the Ministry of Health has signed a cooperation agreement with FPT, and now FPT is developing medical information technology nationally, and it has, I think, so far provided it for around maybe 200 hospitals and keeps on expanding nationally. And it's one of these things, electronics, digital health is really challenging because it's a highly regulated environment, and patient record is of course very sensitive and needs to be protected. And as well, like hospitals sometimes have very complex processes and protocols that need to be tackled. And so this example is a great success story of how digital can transform the healthcare environment in the country. Next. So here's only a couple of example and the main results, and very quickly, because I'm sure I'm already using a bit more of my time and I don't want to use more time for the others. All of this provides a lot of opportunities for people seeking to share their expertise and technologies. Next slide. So as part of the report, what we've looked at is all the upcoming opportunities, not only the projects that have happened, but all the projects that are about to happen or will happen in the future. And we do see, first of all, there's quite a few, and we do see like quite a bit of focus on what we mentioned, like the Intelligent Operations Center, e-government, smart healthcare, smart transport. These are the things that have been happening in certain cities and are now spreading to other cities. And so it's always good to see that happening. But you also have new topics, so new technologies, new projects around new and exciting topics like EdTech or climate resilience or digital payment and smart infrastructure management. These might represent the future of what smart city projects are about in Vietnam, but as well in the rest of Southeast Asia. So it's quite exciting to see that. Next slide. And I won't go into detail, but the report also highlights 8 main enablers for smart city deployment, because it's one thing to deploy a project and put technology on the ground, but you also have to create a very, you could say, positive and conductive environment for this to happen, which requires a mix of having the right funding and financing, having the right legal framework, connectivity, open data applications, integrations and harmonization of IT infrastructure and procurement. All of the things are important. I won't go into detail there. You can look at the report at your leisure after that. Sorry, next slide. I'm not used to not controlling my slides. And we also, as part of the report, propose a couple of recommendations in terms of where potentially the Vietnamese government could focus on if they wanted to keep on creating that enabling environment and accelerate the development of smart cities in Vietnam. But again, I won't go into detail here. Feel free to have a look at it as part of the report. And I think that's it. My apologies for taking a bit more time. You're on mute, Matt, I believe. I believe you're still on mute.
That is a valid point. Thank you very much for pointing that out. Bryce, thank you very much. I think you clearly demonstrated the opportunities that are available in Vietnam, and it's great to see so many projects that have been started. And I guess the key now is making sure the momentum is continued and we continue to grow and develop both in locations and the projects that are happening. So I'd now like to hand over to Sajid Khan, the Senior Director for Intel Smart Cities and Transportation. Sajid, over to you.
Hey, thank you so much. Appreciate your having me on here, and good afternoon to everybody on the phone. Let me go ahead and share my screen, make sure that's all working. Give me a moment. Is this coming through okay?
Yes.
All right. So, so again, I'm Sajid Khan with Intel, and we're going to talk briefly about smart cities and transportation infrastructure and what a transformational opportunity it is to improve citizen outcomes, to improve just the way we live, the way we move, the way we do things in cities, but also beyond cities. I think as Bryce was talking to earlier, it's such a catch-all phrase, smart cities. It just is it includes a lot of different venues like airports and train stations and roadways and so on. So lots of opportunities, and we believe that Intel with our technology offerings, we have the edge to core to cloud, all the different opportunities for folks to kind of take advantage of products and solutions to make things happen. So with that, let's jump into the discussion. Again, sort of teeing off of the previous conversation about how we've grown as humanity these last several hundred years, especially. You'll notice this global population explosion. You'll notice a hockey stick right around the 1700s or so. So it took us a couple of 100,000 years to get to 1 billion in population on this planet. But yeah, the second billion happened very, very rapidly in about 123 years. The third was even faster in 33 years. So you get the idea of how things are, how many more people there are on the globe than there used to be. By the same token, 6 cities with over 1 million in population in the year 1500. I believe that Vietnam itself has about 7 cities today that are over 1 million in population. So if you compare to the global footprint of large cities, it's just remarkable how many more cities there are. There were 12 cities, and even as late as the 1900s, with over 1 million in population, and now there's 488 cities. Those are expected to go to 662 cities. So this starts to kind of paint the picture. It starts to kind of convey why utilizing everything we can to make cities more efficient, both physical infrastructure as well as digital infrastructure, is just absolutely critical. Now, as we have so many more people on the globe and much bigger cities and many more of these cities, the types of problems that were alluded to, right? Congestion, safety, environmental concerns. 80% of us are exposed to environments and air pollution higher than that, than recommended by the EPA. Safety concerns in some big cities, unfortunately. Congestion issues where this traffic chews up so much of our time and so on. And these are the types of things that we want to address with smart cities, the types of things that are getting addressed as we speak. Now, regardless of despite all of those issues, people want to be in cities. We just are, we're a social animal. So, but there's so much that cities offer: access to education, all the great universities, all the great schools. Many of them are located in large cities, better healthcare, more opportunities. There's so many jobs and corporate environments and so on, small businesses, the drivers of the economy that are based in cities. And that's what realizing the dream of cities is all about. Now, as we look to what's happening globally, right? Governments across the globe have been working on creating better infrastructure, refocusing on infrastructure over the past several decades. But this last year or two has been quite remarkable. So we believe that we're seeing a kind of a really renewed interest, a renewed passion for looking at our cities and looking at what can be done to improve the infrastructure with a step function increase in investment. So these numbers to the right are numbers from different geographies, different countries. Just very recently in the US, there was the infrastructure bill that was passed, at $1.2 trillion, and China $1.4 trillion. India is looking to spend $1.3 million with the program there. The EU, similar numbers with $0.9 trillion. So a huge investment in physical infrastructure. And with that, we believe that we're really seeing sort of an inflection point here in terms of investment in our cities, investment in smart cities. So it's a paradigm shift. We really think that this is an opportunity to advance the quality of life of people in the environments that they live in with these investments. Now, as these entities, these various governments, and governments aren't the only entities that are investing. There's also private-public partnership opportunities, many different ways to kind of fund smart city projects. But as they're investing into smart cities, the physical infrastructure is sort of, top of mind. It's the first thing that folks want to invest in, adding a new roadway, building a new airport. But it's the digital technologies that overlay onto the physical infrastructure that really are the catalyst to change. These are technologies, these are opportunities that we didn't have available to us a few decades ago. There were concepts like AI, but really the effectiveness of these technologies was not quite there. At this time, or for several years now, they're just very usable, and that's a big difference from where things were. If you look at the digital transformation and how it potentially unlocks the potential for positive change in terms of just roadways, for example, 1 million plus, I believe the number is 1.3 million lives are lost today annually in accidents. A very unfortunate fact, and that's where things are. With the Project Vision Zero, we're looking to drive that down to no lives lost. This is going to take time, it's going to take effort, but things are tracking, and as we see more technology deployed, more safety concerns sort of incorporated, we're really looking to kind of save those lives every year. Giving back time. This is a research project that Intel did with Juniper Research out of the UK, where if you add up all the hours spent in gridlocked in traffic or waiting in lines and so on and so forth, you're looking at about close to 60 hours per citizen per year that are saved, and that can be a huge boon to people to kind of just get that time back and not waste time in sitting in traffic and so on. Reduced air pollution. So in Pittsburgh, this is a study from Metro 21, which is in collaboration with Carnegie Mellon here in the States, the university. 21% reduction in air pollution because of reduced traffic and so on. So there is a lot of things. These are just a couple of data points. There's a lot of things that can be improved using digital technologies in conjunction with improved physical infrastructure. If you look at some of the segments and outcomes, really, but we use the term smart cities, and I've got one additional slide here about this to drive home the point. But smart cities is really, it's really everything in the kitchen sink. There's connected railways, smart airports. Excuse me, that's an Intel sort of usage tracker. So it looks like I've been working more than I should today. Just give me a moment. Okay, we're back. So so connected vehicles, fleet management, EV charging, multimodal transportation, so many different things, so many different opportunities that can be improved using digital infrastructure. This slide attempts to just quickly convey the different segments in a different graphical format. If you look at, again, smart cities and transportation, which is sort of the catch-all phrase or to the point made by the previous speaker, the smart cities sometimes encompasses all this, but it's roadways, the environment, public health, stadiums, university campuses, airports. You can think about smart cities, smart communities, smart local regions, even smart countries, because the technologies are available and they can be deployed in different venues with great impact and improving citizen outcomes. Now, Intel's CEO, Pat Gelsinger, talks about, there used to be this concept of the superpower seemed to kind of connote nation states, right? You think about a superpower and it's a nation state. But today, maybe a better way to think about it is that you have these technologies that are superpowers. And there's 4 in particular technologies that working in conjunction with each other really are at this cusp of driving a huge change in the way we live, in the way we work, and the way we move about. So there's ubiquitous compute. It's not in one place. It's not in your laptop or your desktop. It's in the network. It's in the cloud. It's in at the edge. Pervasive connectivity. So today, about 60% of the global population has persistent connectivity to the web. That's expected to grow to 90% by 2030. So some huge strides have already been made, and this huge huge step is still to be taken, where most of humanity will be connected by 2030. Cloud to intelligent edge. So with the cloud, people have access to perhaps the biggest supercomputer ever made. So you can access all of this technology in the cloud at the click of a button, right? AI was, the concepts became known 20, 30, 40 years ago, but really up until several years ago, the practical applications were limited. Now this has just sort of, it's just boomed, and there's so many different things that can be done, and so much has happened just in the last several years where and this is very applicable to smart cities and transportation, as the audience likely knows. So these are sort of the 4 superpowers of digital transformation, the way that Intel sees it, the way that Intel CEO Pat Gelsinger talks about this. So really all of these technologies are very applicable to smart cities and transportation, and through open standards, through our ecosystem, we bring these technologies to the marketplace, and you have a lot of choices in terms of who you can work with and how you can kind of get the best possible competitive environment and the best possible technologies and solutions. So here's a slide that sort of captures the underlying ingredients all the way from the edge to the core to the cloud that Intel offers and brings to our ecosystem. The ecosystem in turn, the Dells and the HPEs and all the different companies that kind of take these technologies, put them into a box, they bring them into a solution. We collaborate very closely with a lot of our partners to make all of this happen. And these are all provided with the best possible performance, security, scalability, and reliability. So these are sort of the ingredients that go into just building out an efficient and thriving city. So when you think about deploying these solutions, whether it be in the US or Vietnam, it really takes a lot of collaboration. So working with city managers, with departments of transportation, of course, with so many different entities to really think about what needs to get done. But from a technology perspective, it's, this is the stack that you look at, right? Silicon, hardware, operating systems, networking, orchestration software, data platforms, applications. So it takes a village, and that's what the Intel ecosystem kind of brings to bear. It's just, best of breed partners that can bring so much value to a city, to an agency that is looking to deploy solutions. So CSPs, ISVs, OEMs, system integrators all come together, and we look to work with a lot of these entities to kind of make things happen with a given deployment or a given solution. So I think Arup and Bryce talked to this in really great with really great specifics and all the wonderful things that are happening in Vietnam. This is just a smattering of case studies, EV charging, smart grid, all these different sorts of things that are being deployed in Hanoi, in Da Nang, and Ho Chi Minh. So lots of energy, lots of momentum, and we're looking forward to continue to work with entities in Vietnam to partner with folks to make things happen. So just a couple slides here. This is something that as I've worked with cities, with departments of transportation here in the States, in the UK, in the Middle East, and just it's a global sort of role. So we work with folks in a lot of different regions and in Latin America. These 4 steps seem to help. Again, this is something that the larger cities, the larger entities probably know very well. But for folks, there's different cities at different levels of quote maturity, right? So where are you in your journey with getting smart cities technologies deployed? So if you're in the earlier stages, really kind of assessing what the needs are, right? So at the city, county, state level, defining what those needs are, really figuring out what's the end state and how you want to get there, right? And then picking a suitable project. So getting going with a specific project. Sometimes you talk to entities and they're like, just sort of thinking about what to do, and time passes. So really picking something that's tangible, that's bite-sized, and getting going with it, even as you think of the broader outcomes that you're looking to drive. Establishing a governance structure. So collaboration, standardization, sort of working with, who are your stakeholders? Who do you want to work with? How do you bring things together? So getting that governance structure pulled together, and exploring funding options. So lots of different opportunities. We even have an ebook that talks to financing options and so on. So looking at what are the different opportunities to make things happen. So a few just ideas to consider. Again, from Intel's experience here, we've really gathered a lot of the experience into a broad swath of ebooks. We've got 3 on this right side of the screen here for ports and railways and smart cities, but there's about 15 plus of these ebooks at this point in time that have been pulled together, and those can be made available to the audience if there's an interest in these ebooks. Again, the time to act is now. The technologies are here, they're mature. The message, I think, from us is there's no need to wait on the technologies, on the solutions. They've been here for some time, and they're improving with Moore's law and just the cadence at which technology changes. They continue to improve, but they're here and they're mature and they're ready to go. So this is the last slide and the closing sort of thought, and something that it's an adage that I really like, and as I came into this role, really communicated this to the team and to entities that I work with, and we think about this and think about how this could help make things move. So thinking big, so thinking with hey, what's the end state? Where do you want to be in 10 years and 15 years and 50 years? Thinking about all of those types of things, and not just smarter but better cities, looking at the human aspect of this, right? And how do you drive better outcomes for citizens? But potentially starting small, right? So not necessarily starting big. So in some situations, it makes sense where the budget is available and everything's good to go. But in some situations, you'll want to start small and get going with specific projects, specific opportunities, and then kind of moving fast, learning, adjusting, iterating, and making things happen. So those are some learnings that we've had and thoughts we've gathered. Hopefully this is helpful. You do have a couple more folks from Intel on the phone. You've got Tuck Chang and Yao on the phone to answer any questions. Again, thank you so much and appreciate the time and the opportunity.
Sajid, thank you very much. Awful lot of information in there. It's great to see your prediction and hopefully evidence of the government investment being more directed towards smart cities. Obviously, that's going to be vital for Vietnam and everywhere else. So thank you very much. I'd now like to hand over to Yao, who is Intel's Segment Marketing Manager for Cities and Transportation. Yao, over to you.
Okay, thanks. So yes, I'm Yao. I'm the Segment Marketing Manager for Smart Cities and Transportation segment. So we have heard about Bryce talking about the Vietnam Smart City report, and also Sajid on the overall smart cities and transportation view from Intel and the direction of it. So for the next 15 minutes, I will focus more on the road transportation and also the infrastructures that is related on the roadside. So maybe next slide, please. Next again. So with this presentation, it does call out to you on some of the different focus areas in terms of the IoT, the Internet of Things, road infrastructures, opportunities. On the left-hand side, if you look at this, right, those are more immediate opportunities that we believe it applies to worldwide, and also we do see that for the Southeast Asia region and also on this part of the world, right? These are some of the use cases which the city governments, the Department of Transportations will be focused on, right? And then on the right-hand side, right, those are the use cases which we believe is more strategic, and then it based on the case-by-case basis, right? Depending on whether there is opportunities that is coming in, but nevertheless, those are the different opportunities that we can see that it will be coming in. So maybe I can quickly go through on the first few one, right, which is intelligent traffic management. So these are the these are the use cases whereby how do you implement the technologies to better do the traffic management to ensure that the traffic flow much better, right? There are different technologies, right? Examples, technologies that is related to the IP cameras, to understanding from a video perspective, to understand what is the current traffic conditions, and other types of sensors, right? In the next few presentations, I will go through with you some of the different sensors technologies. Besides that, there is the smart parking and tolling. These are use cases whereby we will be able to save time, right? Just now Sajid mentioned that roughly about 59 to 60 hours per year. If you are able to implement this correctly, you are able to giving back those times to the different citizens. For the next 2 points, you can see here on the edge services, vehicle to everything, and also the 5G public network, right? Those are the trend that we are looking at from a 5G perspective, right? So 5G not just driving the telecommunication for the consumer, right? But then if you look at it as the smart city technologies, these are also trends, enablers, or the different factors can ensure that you have a more efficient city management solutions and also platform. And then I will spend a couple of minutes in the next few foils to talk about this. Then lastly, there is the trend of EV charging, whereby we are seeing that electric vehicles would be one of the future trend that we are the industries is going into. And then with that, right, we are seeing that we need to set up more EV charging stations, right, to ensure that we are able to cater for this. And while the different government agencies are driving on how can we actually be more sustainable and leveraging EV, right, to have a better environment kind of a strategy there. So those are the main different use cases. And then maybe next slide, please. So I will want to quickly call out to you on the legacy and also the concept of the workload consolidations, right? So while we are going through and implementing all of these different new technologies, right, we are also at the same time seeing there is a trend which we call it as a workload consolidation. So previously, the past 20 or 30 years, right, we are seeing that the different system or the platforms, they are having very fixed function, meaning that one device or one system is running a single function. So we are seeing that we are moving to a more function consolidated into a single device to ensure that you have a higher performance, you have a better future proof in terms of the infrastructures, whereby your device will have capabilities to upgrade, right, to the next versions of capabilities and next version of features. And also you have more headrooms, right, for the owner of those devices. Say, for example, it can be your city councils, it can be your Department of Transportations, to better manage and also have a model to derive to increase the revenue, right? Example, how do you do a revenue share with a private entity, right? By implementing such a technologies. So with this, we are seeing the trend of from the legacy architecture, whereby you are having a discrete, fixed function, unique feature hardware, to a integrated hardware, which that hardware is a higher performance that you can run multiple systems which have multiple features to satisfy the customer needs. So next slide, please. So this is a drill down. I'll maybe spend two minutes here to actually highlight to you how this is working in terms of a road infrastructures, right? In the right-hand side here, this would be a cabinet that you can see on your traffic intersection besides your road. And then it may be controlling your traffic light signaling, and then it will be getting sensor signals, right? To understand, example, the magnetic loops that is on the ground, to understand how many vehicles are there lining in front of the traffic intersections, and then the cameras that is sending the IP camera video feeds in, right? So you see that this is a fairly complex cabinets, and then how do we actually enable flexibilities, right? How do we actually ensure that our management team, right, or the operation team are able to manage these assets efficiently, and then able to manage it remotely from their operation or the command center, right, to understand that, hey, is that something wrong, or is that an issue at the traffic cabinets, right? And then how do we also have an enhanced security, right, to manage these IoT devices, whereby if someone comes in and try to forcibly remove or break in, or even remove the systems, right? How do we actually securely manage those? So those are the different considerations that Intel, we always work with our partners to ensure that these are the features that we build in together with our ecosystems to enable it. So next, please. So with that, right, we modernizing this, right? Ultimately, we always start with the problem statement of why we are doing this, right? On the left-hand side, I think just now Sajid did share a bit of reducing the travel time, improving on the safety of the road users, achieving a better ROI, return of investment for the city councils, and optimizing the operation, right? So those are some of the benefits, right, for the end users. And then the below here are the different types of the use cases, right? I may not go in one-on-one of them, but these are the use cases that is mentioned by Bryce, by Sajid just now. So with things like this, right, you are able to see that devices like what we call it as a roadside unit or RSU, right, or maybe a roadside equipment or the cabinet or the mounted on the traffic light or the street light pole or the street furnitures. So these are the devices that Intel are working very closely promoting with our ecosystem partners. So next, please. So when I mentioned that we are working it closely, right? What does Intel offers, and then how do we actually work closely with it, right? So below here, you are seeing that Intel is working in terms of the base enabling software on the very base line, right? You see here on the base, and then we are also working on the different features, right? These are the components that we work with our independent software vendors, our system integrators. So today, if you are a system integrators and supporting the Vietnam markets, right, then I'll be glad to share with you what type of software components that Intel is providing to you, so that you can assist your customers in terms of the digital transformation journey. Say, for example, whether is it a AI compute with our OpenVINO, or whether is it a pervasive connectivities on the 5G side with our Smart Edge Open as the stack, right, the software development kit or the software stack to enable that. So with that, then you will be building the different applications on top of it, such as the smart cities applications, the roadway applications, or even the infrastructures applications. So for this, right, we are actually supporting effectively the different ecosystem on the right, be it from the hardware, the software, the platform integrations, and also the end customers. Next, please. So these are the different components that Intel is providing. So to you, maybe when we mention about Intel, maybe the first top of the mind recall, you may think of that Intel is a hardware companies which has the diverse hardware portfolio on the left-hand side. At the same time, we also have a powerful developer tools and also the software reference solution in the middle piece, right? The different development tools that I mentioned just now, and also the reference implementation that you are seeing here, the different reference implementation that we are working with our ecosystem partner. So ultimately, the hardware and the software development tools and the software reference solutions, what we are able to create is a diverse set of a solution on the right-hand side that you are seeing here, and also the different commercial ready marketing platforms that we are able to drive together with our partners, right? Like a Intel Market Ready, which what that means is that that particular solutions has already deployed, right? And then it's ready to be deployed, right? And also other programs like Intel RFP Ready Kits, right? Which is the solutions are ready to go in and go and address a RFP and response to a RFP. Next, please. So this is a quick overview of the different partners that Intel works with across the ecosystem. You can see on the left-hand side, we have the hardware for the ODM, which is the original design manufacturers, the OEM, which is the original equipment manufacturers. So these are the hardware-focused partners that we work with for the road infrastructures. The middle one is ISV, which stands for the independent software vendors. To create a optimized software running on the hardware from our ecosystems. And then we work with our system integrators and solution providers to provide hardware and software and then to integrate it. And then ultimately we work with our end customers, right, to influence and then to understand their challenges and pain points, and then also to enable our ecosystem partners to deliver the solutions according to the challenges that our end users is seeing. So next, please. So this is my last presentation here. So I would like to call out, right? Let's work together, right? Let's reach out to Intel if you have a specific needs, and then you are going, example, with a commercial trial. You wanted to search for a off-the-shelf solutions, right? And then you are going into a field trial. Please reach out to Intel, and then we will be working very closely with you on these different marketing programs that I just mentioned. And also do go in and have a look at our ebook, right, on the different implementation and how do we actually work across the different opportunities on the smart roads and the infrastructure side. So with that, I'll pass it back to Matt, and thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you very much. Some very interesting data. It's a lot going on, a lot that still can happen. And obviously you're doing some great work. Thank you very much. Okay, we have some questions. So I hope panelists, you are ready to answer these. The first one from Barney, who actually sadly has had to leave the presentation, but we will send the answer to him afterwards. What services specialists do you think are needed due to the lack of expertise in Vietnam looking towards the future? And the second part, can you foresee any specific niche markets or opportunities for overseas SMEs, experts who can bring value to the development of Vietnam? Yeah, would you like to answer that one?
Yep, maybe I can take a first one from a Intel perspective, right? Yeah. So from an Intel perspective, I would like to highlight that we do see that transportation would be one of the main opportunities based on our engagement and discussion, right? And then, of course, I think Bryce may have the report that are coming in on the different opportunities, but definitely we do see that infrastructures which are very closely tied to the transportation. So as you mentioned, right, different cities, they may have different maturity level as what Sajid mentioned just now. So with that also means that the ecosystem wise, right, if you look at a country level, one country may not have all the different solutions that develop domestically, right? That's why just now I do share with you on the ecosystem partners that Intel is very closely work with, right? Be it on the hardware, the software, and also the whole solution integration. So if you look at that from that perspective, and then take a step back, right, and then try to understand in that sense that, hey, which one that you can solve internally or domestically from Vietnam, and where is the strength is, and then where is the challenges or the gaps is, right? And then if you can work with a technology consulting or a technology partner, say for example, Intel would be one of the technology partners that we would love to work with you. If you work with us in that manner, then we can help you bring in other countries or other geos solutions that is implemented in other parts of the world to complement while highlighting the local strength. So that's the Intel take.
Okay. Bryce, would you like to add anything in regards to that question?
Yeah, I think the usual divide between local expertise and global expertise is to say that, I mean, first of all, I think that local expertise is really needed in order to really being able to first identify the technologies that are useful in the context and how to deploy the technologies, being mindful of Vietnam's context being social, political, economic, and whatnot. And so you do need a lot of people on the ground who understand Vietnam from the ground up, who understand how people are using technology, who understand the money as well. Like, you know, if you're implementing technology that is too costly for the people who operate it to operate it, it's quickly going to become abandoned. So first of all, I don't think necessarily there is a gap of expertise in Vietnam, because a lot of opportunities to deploy technologies in Vietnam are not opportunities about super fancy, complex technology, AI-driven blockchain. It is sometimes about identifying simple, well-proven technologies with many decades of existence, but applying it and deploying it within a Vietnamese context in a way that is actually going to reach its impact, and it's going to reach its impact cost effectively, which is the most important, right? So I feel there is a huge opportunity for global companies to come in with technologies that actually will really solve Vietnam problem. And I think a lot of global companies are coming in saying, okay, we have excellent waste management technologies, we have excellent water management technologies and whatnot, but these technologies exist, and now they're available across the board. I think what the real gap is happening, and we see it across Southeast Asia, is people who locally who can make the translation between what's available out there and not only the opportunity and the challenge to be solved, but as well the capabilities to be solved, right? And I think this is quite critical. And right now, I feel a lot of the technology companies from outside are coming into these countries, play critical roles in developing the technology skills, right? And these skills need to be developed, and that's fantastic that indeed Intel, Microsoft, IBM, everybody is coming in and really hiring local people and creating the digital leaders of today and tomorrow. However, on top of these technical skills, we have to understand that a lot of the challenges are not technical in nature. They're human in nature, they're political in nature, they're economic in nature. And so having people who can, in Vietnam right now, who can straddle both elements is actually very, very critical, and probably way more important for the future success of smart city initiatives than having super well advanced data scientists, et cetera, because right now this is not necessarily the most pressing needs that you have in Vietnam and in the next couple of years.
Okay, thank you very much, both of you, for those answers. Another question that's come in: what would you say are the key focuses of smart city development in Vietnam and maybe further afield in Southeast Asia? And what do you think will be coming next? So that might be another one for you, Bryce, to start with.
I'll leave it maybe to the rest of the team to answer, because I believe I answered some of it. At least I provided some of my take on the presentation, which was a lot of the focus was on the mobility, the e-government bit, and digital infrastructure. That's what our results showed, but I would love to have the perspective from Your Way and Sajid on the question.
Okay, perfect. Tuk, would you like to?
Yeah, I can give my view on this as well. I think a lot of ways the smart cities are driven by the urbanization population, and there is an influx of great number of people going into the city, and that really stress out the natural resources of a city. And what are they? Typically water and power. I think this will be the most pressing things that every smart city are trying to achieve. Either they want to increase the capacity to distribute all these resources, or they want to save save by cutting down the usage. And then how do they do it? Because essentially everything is running on power and uses a lot of water today. So there's one way is really to use the IoT kind of sensors technology using the 5G, and that actually cut down the wastage of the water and the power consumption. This is my view on enabling a more efficient type of smart cities. And this is not only for Vietnam, but the whole Asian ASEAN will actually need this kind of deployments.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, anything to add to that?
Yes, I think that's Tuck shared a very good point there. One of the other drivers that I see, right, at the current point is that we are pushing in terms of the 5G transition. I think this is a period of a transition between 5G networks, and then we believe that the government can, or the smart cities city councils, right, they can actually take this as opportunities while they are upgrading and then the infrastructure side on the telco 5G, they can also consider this and then integrate it together. I think this will also go very hand in hand with the upgrading of the infrastructures and the data that is being shared by Sajid just now, right, on the global trend of upgrading the infrastructure. So that is like a bit of a push, right, from other factors to besides the one that Tak mentioned.
Okay. Actually, I think another question for you, Yao, here, because specifically related to Intel. So you talked about Intel's products for smart cities in Vietnam, and you talked about the collaborations. What collaboration opportunities would you welcome from other players and other suppliers in the industry?
Yes, so from Intel perspective, right, of course, firstly, we wanted to highlight the main problems and challenges that we are solving, right? Say, for example, the first one would be whether is it a compute, you are using the compute, are you using the trend of like artificial intelligence to make it more effective and efficient, right? Then are you leveraging on the communication technologies, right? Those are the main one. And then are you leveraging the technologies from cloud to edge, sending the cloud and then leveraging it to the edge devices? So all of these are the main points. And how do we actually collaborate with the different partners is that we have all the different marketing programs that I mentioned, right? Say, for example, one of it would be a market-ready solution. So how do we actually enable our partners to work with it is that our partners having a solution, and then you go through that and says that, hey, you are able to deploy this in one of the cities, right? And then working together with Intel, we justify and says that, yes, this is one of the programs, and then we will publicize this and then go through the different so-called marketing enabling channel so that we can push forward this to more ecosystem and then megaphone it, right, and let more of the ecosystem know about, hey, this is a very good solutions that are solving all the different challenges that I mentioned. So we have multiple marketing programs that we can work together. I just mentioned one of those. So do reach out to Intel, right? We will be able to collaborate with you on how to scale those solutions with you. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much. One more question that has just come in from Paul Sheedy. Talks about in the West, projects obviously are maybe much more advanced, and then moving into different markets. So the question has actually got an interesting one on pricing. How do we price solutions to take into account a differing economy to Western economies that can easily afford this kind of technology? How can we pilot projects to illustrate a strong return on investment? Is there a particular view on that, maybe from your experience, Tuck or Yao, or anything in Bryce's research?
I can take a first crack at it, and
Okay.
Tuck and Yao build on it as we go along. Of all the smart cities, so we worked a lot on smart city and emerging market. As I mentioned a bit earlier, the key issue is usually not a technological issue. The technology is ready, I think Sajid was mentioning, but it's a human issue and it's a financial issue. It's a human capability issue and it's a financial issue, because sometimes it's very hard to find the right people to deploy and maintain the technologies, and it's very hard to sometimes find business models that actually work in like you say emerging market context. And so for that, there's usually a couple approaches. First of all, I think there's a lot of value, and I'd apply that to technology vendors as well. And I used to work for Samsung, so I understand the perspective. I think there is a lot of value for technology vendors to come up with innovative business models that actually are well aligned with the target that they're trying to achieve. And some of these alternative business models are well known. They're, for example, like as a service business model, as opposed to very high capex, for example, like OPEX driven business model that allows like infrastructure as a service to spread the cost across, which ends up being maybe more expensive, but at least you solve some capex issues and working capital issues that a lot of governments might be having. The second one is partnering with private sector who have strong financial capabilities on the ground. And this is where the VieTel and the FPTs, sometimes, you know, they are actually mandated by the government to deploy technologies that have the public interest at heart, in exchange for access to other lands that are more commercially driven, right? And so these large organizations can sometimes like fill the gap between some of the resource constraint that local governments might have, meanwhile helping as well technology companies to be made whole on complex and expensive technologies that are there. So that's I think a second one. Third, there is a whole range of financing capabilities in the region that are or new financing models where you have a combination of public sector, private sector, multilaterals like the World Bank and the ADB, who can potentially give access to guaranteed loans, et cetera, et cetera. It requires some creativity, but I think to the extent that a technology partner, a government partner, and a private partner work together around a flexible way of making it happen, you do have some good outcomes that can emerge at the end of that. Two very quick points that I will make to the question has been asked. First of all, I would question the fact that impactful technology is expensive technology. Impactful technology is not expensive technology. The most impactful technologies that we've seen deployed in Africa, Southeast Asia, India is simple, cheap sensors linked to simple management programs that are basically run by competent people. Do you need billions of dollars to do this? Absolutely not. And I think there is a reflex to stay away from that belief that because the technology is complex and sophisticated, that is going to solve your problem better. No. If you want to solve flood, have a couple of flood sensors across like tactically selected areas, have a couple people monitor that on a regular basis, and you might solve yourself billions of dollars in flood-related costs every year. You need millions of dollars to do that? No, absolutely not. The second point I want to make is when people talk about pricing, they focus on cost of technology. Cost of technology is only one side of the equation. The real equation is return on investment. What is the value that you're getting out of the cost that you're making, right? And so, especially if you start working around innovative business models, from the perspective that you know that the technology that you're going to put in is going to save you billions of dollars in cost, for example, like, for example, reducing the cost of operations of building or reducing the cost of floods, which is happening in Jakarta and Kuala Lumpur and whatever it is. As soon as you've well established that, it is quite easier to find the right investors or to find the right people who are willing to then put the right money in order to generate the right value. But right now, I feel a lot of people, when they focus on tech, are focusing purely on the cost element and are not as good as articulating what the value is and who's capturing that value. And once you understand who's capturing that value, then you can do this interesting business model, because then you know who you need to bring around the table and who has a stake in actually making that investment. So that was a long kind of winded answer, but it's a very interesting question.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. Yao, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, just a quick one, right? I think Bryce actually summarized it very nicely, right? Firstly, start with why, right? We understand the problem statement, and then we have the list of the most critical in terms of priorities, right? And then start with the most critical priorities and solve it there, right? And make your scope small, as what Sajid mentioned just now, right? You start small on a particular project and then move fast, right? Learn from it and then reiterate it, right? Although you envision that this is your overall smart city pictures, but then you start small so that you gain some momentum while you are learning it, and then gain some small successes in order to convince, right, the different stakeholders, be it the city councils, be it your public and private partnerships partners, right, to ensure that yes, you have the model to work forward and then work it through. So yep, that's the input that I have. Yep.
Okay. Tuk, anything to add on that?
I'm fine.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you very much for all the questions. And I think we're almost out of time. So I think I'd like to say thank you very much to our panel, Bryce Richard, Sajid Khan, Yao Wai Yon, and Tuk for stepping in as well. Incredibly insightful. I mean, it's an incredible subject, and one that is moving very quickly. We've seen what's happening in Vietnam and the wider region. It's obviously important that we keep that momentum going. We've seen what the impact is on people's lifestyle, on business, on utility and infrastructure management. And what the benefits are and what the benefits can be. And then we had a very insightful and detailed presentation on smart infrastructure and all the different elements of that and how that's being implemented. So, I would also like to thank the audience. I hope it's been insightful for you. If you need any further information, please don't hesitate to contact us. And we can also put you in touch with any of the panel. So thank you for joining. Have a very good rest of the afternoon. And we look forward to seeing you again very soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.